Once upon a time, in a faraway land, in a small village, there lived a beautiful and kind princess. This princess, known as Snow White, was one of the most beautiful people in the world. Her hair was brighter than the sun, her skin whiter than a snowflake, and her lips more beautiful than a red rose petal. The princess's mother was a wicked woman who envied this beauty. This wicked-hearted woman, a witch, used a magic mirror to ask every day who was the fairest of them all. Unfortunately, she received the same answer every day. Snow White was the fairest. One day, the witch could not take it anymore and decided to kill Snow White. But instead of killing her, she asked a huntsman to take her into the forest and kill her. The huntsman, however, took pity on the princess and set her free in the forest. As Snow White wandered through the forest, she came across 7 dwarfs. These 7 dwarfs were kind-hearted and cheerful creatures living in the forest. The dwarfs took Snow White into their home and decided to help her. The princess began to live with the dwarfs and helped them happily every day. However, the wicked witch, learning that Snow White was still alive, tried to kill her by giving her a poisoned apple. Fortunately, before she could swallow the poisoned apple, she was found by a prince who kissed her and brought her back to life. Snow White woke up from her sleep and lived happily ever after with the prince. The witch, on the other hand, was left alone with her evil intentions and could never harm anyone again. Snow White and the prince lived a loving life together and eventually got married. The princess invited the dwarfs to her wedding to show her gratitude. The dwarfs were overjoyed to see Snow White's happiness. After this event, Snow White remained with the dwarfs, and they lived happily ever after together. However, their happiness did not last long, as the witch reappeared and swore never to return. Snow White, fearing the witch's return, remained courageous. The witch made plans to poison Snow White again, but this time Snow White was more careful and managed to escape the witch's traps. When Snow White confronted the witch's return, she asked for help from the dwarfs. The dwarfs stood by Snow White and fought the witch. Eventually, they defeated the witch and saved Snow White. Snow White and the prince became even more attached to each other after this event. Together, they defeated evil and lived happily ever after. The dwarfs continued to help Snow White, and they all lived happily ever after. This story tells of the power of love, friendship, and kindness, and shows that good always triumphs. Snow White and the dwarfs, by living together, working together, and supporting each other, overcame difficulties. And this shows how a real fairy